The situation in the Middle East is escalating, and I had the opportunity today to sit down with a Palestinian pastor. And right now, there's a lot of confusion between people who are standing with Israel or standing with Palestine. Well, what about the Christians who are in Palestine? We're going to hear the uncomfortable truth around this conflict and the work that Pastor Stephen Corey is doing on the ground to share the love of Jesus with the Palestinian people across the West Bank and in Gaza. Can you just share a bit of your story as a Christian who is in Bethlehem, which is in the West Bank, who is a Arab Palestinian, and give us some context of who you are, and then we'd love to get some context on the situation from a Arab Palestinian perspective.
Sure, brother. So I was born in Jerusalem, and I grew up in the birth city of Christ, the city of Bethlehem. Why Bethlehem? Well, my father is a Jerusalemite as well, so am I, was born in Jerusalem. My father was called to the ministry at a young age from an American who walked the streets of Jerusalem, gave the gospel to my father, and out of that came his salvation.
And I think some people don't know that there is a presence in Bethlehem, in the West Bank, of Christians, Palestinian Christians. And sometimes you kind of see one side of it and you think the entire population there is a monolith. And though the Christian population has decreased in size, there still are a lot of Arab Palestinian Christians.
Yeah, there is. Obviously, it's declined over the years. For example, let's just say about Bethlehem, talk about Bethlehem and its surrounding 3-4 mile radius of these villages and towns. At one point, Bethlehem and its surrounding areas was about 88% Christian. They lump, this is all denominations lumped under one umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Today, 22, 23 years later today, the pendulum is completely swapped. Now, Bethlehem, this area, is less than 20% Christian,
Wow.
and 80%. Yeah, actually, some statistics now, they're saying about 14%. This is just Bethlehem in the region. Now, across the country, on Israel and the Palestinian areas, Christianity right now is less than 1.2 to 1.3% less than that.
It sounds like the people that I hear from the Palestinian perspective, there's kind of like specific talking points they have. Does Israel have a right to exist as a nation? They say, well, what do you mean by have a right to exist as a nation? As I'm having these conversations with my Palestinian friends, right? And so I'm like, well, like, they're there. Like, this is where we already are, right? And it sounds like from their perspective, they're like, no, like, just kind of give all the land back. And I'm like, like, I understand why you feel that way in terms of who has a claim to the land and all those sorts of things. But I don't think that's a realistic thing that's going to happen anytime soon. And then you have some Palestinians that don't want to live under a two-state solution. They want the land back. There's others that would probably prefer to be, a part of Israel. Like, give me some of the different perspectives on how some Palestinians view Israel and how it's not all a monolith. There's a spectrum there.
So
Okay.
you have those that are very religious, and those that are very religious, some call them fanatics, some call them extremists, or some call them very devout. It depends on what spectrum there are. On the Islamic side, they see Israel as an abomination. It should not exist.
Wow.
They are the enemy. They always will be the enemy. Nothing Israel can do. No amount of food distribution, no amount of aid they can pass that could really restore a relationship with the Arab world, specifically with
Mhm.
the Palestinian mindset. So
Sure.
you have the next level step, who many Arabs say, listen, we understand they're here, we're here. And by the way, the first section denies every existence of a Jewish people.
Right.
They deny the existence of a temple. They deny existence of anything called a Jewish world. And then you have the next spectrum of people that say, listen, I don't like Israel, I don't like the Jewish people, but we can't deny that they don't exist because they're mentioned in the Quran. The Quran mentions that
Right.
such a thing called as the promised people. They say we can't deny that, but yet we also can't deny that Israel's existence also it goes against international laws from many aspects. And they give their reasons. And of course, we're not going to get into that right now because time and reasons, and that's not the positions that many carry, anyways. But so they say is Israel needs to give up back the land back to the 1967 lines, and then from there we will negotiate the further steps from there. But Israel, the Jewish people, they're here. We can't deny they're here. They exist, and so forth.
Can you share a bit about some of the ministry that you've gotten to do with folks from Gaza? You shared a story of just even God doing miracles in Gaza at time. And again, there's thousands of Christians in Gaza, which people don't know.
Most recent statistics, between 500 to about 580 Christians left in Gaza.
Mhm.
So in Gaza, we've done ministry outreaches for years, but probably the last 5 to 7 years, a lot more heavier, because we saw the need and the hunger for people to know more about Jesus Christ. So you might ask, what have you done in the last 30, 40 years, or specifically the last 5 to 7 years? Well, we do compassion evangelism. That's what we call it, compassion evangelism.
Mm,
So what I mean by that is we share the gospel through feeding the physical needs. So we do
that's good.
we would buy thousands of care packs of food, distribute them, but we would also share the love of Christ, the message of Christ, through these outreach events, just teaching people, what does Jesus talk about? Love and forgiveness and grace. During Ramadan, we do outreaches of, what does Jesus talk about? Fasting. You're a Muslim, you're doing Ramadan, all respect to you. Let's see what Jesus talks about fasting, but we always turn it back
Mm,
to the person and the character of Jesus Christ. So we do food
amen.
distribution with the evangelism approach. So we call it compassion evangelism. We've done a medical aid, we've done financial aid to families that living in an apartment with leaking roofs. So we had one family one time who are actually Hindu, and they said, Pastor Steve, are you only helping the Christians who are having leaking roof? We said, no,
Mm,
we help everybody. But everybody we help knows that we're doing it because we're commanded by Christ to do so. And everybody knows that when we do these good kindness, we are going to take the time to talk about the person that commanded us to do this, to love your enemy, to do good for those around you, to love your neighbor as yourself. And there's no greater honor for a man to lay down his life for another. So we share these things because of the mandates of Jesus Christ. We've helped Gazans get out of Gaza, who are
mm.
persecuted, who are suffering because they've accepted Jesus Christ. So when they accept Jesus Christ, they become an enemy of the family. And so we just helped actually David Recruitment, this Orthodox friend, which I really feel that he's a voice that needs to be heard. He helped him, and we tag team to help our sister Dina, who they stabbed her husband to death less than a year ago in Gaza. They
Mm.
stabbed him to death 7 times, and we went into action to get her out of Gaza. We relocated her, and now she's living in Bethlehem area. It's a lot safer for her than Gaza, obviously, because her life was threatened. They told her, "You're next." Once they stabbed her husband 7 times, they told her, "You're next." It's a story that has a history behind it, but it's simple. He stabbed them 7 times. We went into action to get her out. Now we have her in a safe house in Bethlehem. And please be praying for Dina and many others who we need
Yeah.
to relocate. We need to get apartments for. We need to get be able to pay the bills for rent bills for these people, because they have no jobs. Nobody can hire them because it's too dangerous to hire a Gazan, and so forth. Our DNA is church planning, discipleship making, and evangelism. That's our DNA. That's who we are. We plant churches, we share the gospel, and we make disciples for Christ. And we do it with whomever, regardless of what they believe. We walk the journey with people.
Yeah, that's so good, and we'll link Holy Land Missions below and the article below so people can easily find you and all that good stuff. Right now there's you know a tough situation in light of what happened over a week ago, and the Israeli military is asking for 1 million Gazans to evacuate Gaza City, and the border with Egypt is closed. I believe I read today that there's over 600 American citizens in Gaza that are trying to get out. I've been praying, and you tell me what we could be praying for, but this is what I've been praying, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I've been praying that there is wisdom and restraint on the Israeli government. I understand the need to go in and deal with Hamas, but that they would have wisdom in understanding that the world is watching, and that they have to be, as careful as possible. I know they're careful in the past with doing their best to mitigate civilian casualties, but that they would be careful with how they go about going into Gaza and how they go about this, and that ultimately God would open up a corridor for people to get out of there, and that civilian casualties would be mitigated as much as possible as Israel's going to go in and try to deal with Hamas. What do you think we should be praying for, and what are you watching for right now? As it seems to be really tense, and it potentially can turn into other nations getting involved. Hezbollah is making threats, and you got Iran and all this other stuff that this could turn into something that America is involved in. What would you say that we could be praying for, we should be praying for, and what to be watching for?
I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. Before we did this interview, you and I prayed with my kids. I have 5 children, and I prayed with my oldest 4. And in my conversation with them, that was exactly what you just nailed. I mean, you hit it. You hit it, even a nerve with me right now, because that's exactly that's been my prayer. Is our prayer a little about an hour plus or minus ago, is Lord, put wisdom and compassion on the hearts of the Israeli side when dealing with Gaza right now. But also, we pray for both sides. God, put compassion and wisdom on the hearts of Hamas leadership. Um, the rockets is coming from Gaza. That's not right.
Hmm.
And neither are the rockets coming in, the missiles coming in from Israel. Both aren't right. They both justifiably, in their own eyes, have reasons why they're doing it. But the 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 outcome of it is civilians are dying.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
over 3,000 Palestinian deaths on the Gaza border. These are lives we're talking about, and
Mhm.
over 1,400 today. They're saying of Israelis dead. These are lies, and so when we pray um, that God put wisdom and compassion on the hearts of both sides to see where this is going. I encourage everybody reading this. I encourage you guys to read Psalm 83 when dealing with these nations, 10 nations, which are mentioned in Psalm 83, and Gaza is referenced and mentioned in there. So that's the first prayer. Prayer number 2. So one is wisdom, Lord, on and compassion on the hearts of both sides, that in whatever justification they have in their eyes, that their justification would be righteous in the eyes of God first.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
easy for me to give you reasons why I should have revenge. It's easy. And it's not hard. If anybody that's been in these situations, it's not hard. It's not easy. It's very hard.
Mhm.
Uh, but if we include the righteousness of God in all of our judgments and all of our decision making, one might say, Pastor, well, one's a Muslim, they're terrorists. And one would ask me, how can they see the righteousness of God in from that perspective? And on one side could look at Israel, say, Pastor, Israel has the top technology, and they're not going to trust in God either because they're trusting in their own ways. It's a secular state.
Mm.
Well, in both ways, we have to pray in God's righteousness in their judgment, and it has to be prayed in. It can't. They're not going to get up in the morning and say, "I want the Bible," or "What does God say about this?" No,
Right.
God has to knock on their hearts, I tell people it's Proverbs 23:26 where it says, "My son, give me your heart and let your eyes observe my ways." In Hebrew, what it says is, "Sit back, my son, give me your heart, surrender my heart to you, my son." So it says in Proverbs 23:26, it says, "My son, just give me your heart and just sit back
Yeah.
and just rest and observe." It says "Ainai," it means the eyes. Let your eyes observe what I'm about to do. And I think that's my prayer. And the second thing, briefly or quickly, is pray for you. You nailed it. To pray for the open routes for food, water, and so forth. Right now, they're drinking water from the sea, salt
Mm.
water.
Mm. Wow.
There's no fuel. Again, one side who lost on the Israeli side, who lost a father, son, nephew, niece in the last 10 days, they'll tell you that they can drink poison. I could care less. And I can relate to that. If you would have lost a friend, and somebody on the Gaza side might hear me say the same, I could care less whether they sleep at night or not. I want missiles and rockets to fall on every Jewish building. And that's what people are thinking, saying. So I'm praying that number 2 is God would release his angels. Listen to me. This is what I'm saying. I'm praying, God, would you, that's my prayer. God, release your angels to guard and to stand on Gaza, around Gaza, and to command your angels to stand in and around the homes and the people living in these bordering cities and towns, starting from Sderot all the way out to Ashkelon. We see the Lord, there's angels on cities and nations and cities. And I'm asking my praying, Lord, would you activate your angels, because we can't do it alone. Blood is in the air. Killing and violence is in the atmosphere. Revenge is everybody's lingo. Today, bloodshedding, killing is everybody's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And as a ministry, we're standing in the gap in helping people not cross. Where right now, our ministry and our communities, we're standing sort of like the wall of blocking both sides from telling the Arabs who are on the West Bank side, telling them in a creative way, don't cross over to darkness of wickedness, of revenge and killing,
Right.
and regardless of what the religion is. And then
Right.
it seems like we're sitting on the Israeli side today. We did stuff with people on the other side, which I can't talk about that right now because it's too dangerous for me as well as an Arab reaching out hand of
Yeah.
peace to the Jewish side as well. But we did that. We do that regularly, but today specifically now, and I'm trying to help them not to see all the Arabs into one perspective and trying to say, don't cross over into hatred, animosity, and so forth. Don't be a clickbait on social media, and don't be moved by just emotions. We have to think long term. How can we really resolve this? Again, eschatologically, one might say, well, Pastor Curry, that's a silly question. How can we resolve this? You know the answer, Pastor Curry. There's no peace till the Prince of Peace returns. Yes, but until that moment comes, we want Christ to come and find us a righteous few who refuse to call good evil and evil good.
Amen. I wanted you to just share a little bit about the work you're doing on the ground and how we can support you. Of course, we'll link everything down below, because you guys are doing some really awesome stuff on the ground that I think my audience would love to get behind.
Sure, brother. Well, I'll give you just a 30 seconds on what we're doing right now during the war, and 30 seconds on what we're doing outside the spectrum of the war. So outside the war spectrum, we have 11 different ministries in 6 different locations. Most of them are amongst the Arabs, but we've done a lot of things with the Jewish community and the Arab communities. We're bringing them together at conferences, gatherings, and events. Some are messianic, some are not messianics. We're not a Peace Corps organization. We're not. We get them
Sure.
together because we're trying to teach the Arabs. If Jesus says, love your enemies, love your neighbor, let's put it to action. But of course, that doesn't happen overnight. We're training, discipling them, doing outreach programs to these Arabs, whether it be Muslims, Catholics, Orthodox. We're teaching them, if you want to follow Jesus, then do what Jesus says. It's literally that simple. Now, acting out what Jesus said isn't that simple, but it's a submission to it. It should come natural because you decided to follow Jesus. We have full-time evangelists, so people support our spectrum outside of our realm, outside of this war. The last 10 days, we have evangelists, we have trainers, we have teachers, we have Bible teachers. Our full-time ministry, besides our humanitarian outreach, we have a media ministry, we have a printing ministry, food distribution ministry, all with the gospel teaching message. So as you can tell, outside of the last 10 days, our DNA is planting churches, discipleship, and evangelism, and people get involved with our ministry. Those are gun-ho evangelists like us, all the way down to those that say, "Hey, listen, evangelism isn't for me. I'm scared. That scares me. But I like that you feed people." So people can jump on board, support, be a part of us, regardless what level of faith they're on. And then for the Gaza last 10 days, we've ordered. See, I wanted to say this here. During the last 10 days, about 2 days into the war, Israel put a siege and they blocked all the West Bank cities from each other. So now the last 10 days, Arab Palestinians who love working on the Israeli side, why do they love it? Because they get paid double the rate and many other reasons they love work on the Israeli side. And they'll tell you, hey, they say, I don't like the Jews, but I like to work there because I get paid good. So that's the worst thing, all the way down to, hey, listen, man, they'll look around, make sure nobody's looking. They'll say, I like them. They treat me good. They honor me. They respect me. So now these are getting angry. They're getting angry at the Israeli side. Because why would Israel close the borders? Obviously, Israel has a reasoning to them. They're trying to eliminate infiltration of militia, commandos, or terrorists into the West Bank. That's what Israel says. So they're saying they blocked off these roads, and these Palestinians who live throughout the West Bank, thousands who work on the Israeli side, over 200 to 300,000 work on the Israeli side. They're angry. They're frustrated. They're frustrated with Hamas because this war is affecting them not having a functioning life. Number two, food distribution, food coming into the West Bank. It's almost impossible now. Shelves are running
Mm,
out,
mm.
Russell. I mean, they're running out right now. Shelves of, so we're buying for wholesale stocks of food, rice, wheat. The average package today costs us about $65 to about $88 by the time we deliver it, ship it, box it, whether it be using staff or volunteers. By the time it reaches on the doorstep of a home, it costs us around $88 when you include everything in. It used to cost us $45 to do a care pack, about $55. Now it's costing us about $88 because roads are blocked, everything's going up. So with the Gaza families who are stuck in the West Bank, we're helping them. We're helping the Christian families throughout the West Bank in major areas right now. We're also trying to help some people on the Israeli side. They have Arabs on the Israeli side who are suffering, and even some of the Jewish families. There are many Jewish Christian families called Messianic believers who are Jewish people that believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. We're helping them. We sent food today. We're sending boxes of food tomorrow to them, and they know it's coming from Christians in the West through a local Arab Christian ministry, and it really puts a healing on the hearts of many.
So the link to support Pastor Stephen Corey's ministry is located below. And as this is an uncertain time for a lot of Christians, one of the best things you could be doing is praying. And one of the best ways you could be praying is by journaling your prayers, documenting, which will help you remember them, help you stay consistent, and ultimately create a system around your prayers so that you're not falling in and out of praying consistently, which is why we have our Bless God prayer journal available now, and we have the PDF version at blessgodpdf.shop that you could download completely for free. You could also check out the new black version as well. I'll see you over there.